Welcome to the Cocktail Spirit from Small Screen Network. I'm your host, Robert Hess. Today we're going to take and dive into the past a little bit and pull out a recipe for one of my old books. The oldest recipe I could find, the oldest book I could find that had the recipe in it was The ABC of Mixing Cocktails by Harry MacElhone. He's the bartender from Harry's New York bar in Paris. In here he calls for the recipe, it's called the Old Pal cocktail, and he asks for equal parts of Canadian whiskey, dry vermouth, and Campari. He says the drink was created by Sparrow Robertson, the sporting editor of the New York Herald in Paris. So since Harry was in Paris and Sparrow was in Paris, that's probably how he found the recipe. So let's take a look. We're going to start off with 1 ounce of Bulleit Rye Whiskey. I'm using a American whiskey rather than a Canadian whiskey. Guys, I think it adds a little bit more flavor to it. And now we're going to use 3/4 ounce of Campari and dry vermouth. Now notice the original recipe was for equal parts. I'm bumping up the amount of the rye whiskey just to add a little bit more of a spirit-forward flavor to it, because I always think a cocktail should be celebrating the spirit. Feel free to experiment with the ratios a bit if you want, and see what works best for you. Now, 3/4 ounce. Now, in the past, you've been seeing me use these OXO measures, and one of my biggest complaints about these is they don't have a 3/4 ounce measure. So I'm now using this little jigger that I found. It's a 2-part jigger. Little magnet sticks together like that. It's got measurements on the inside the same way that the OXO does. The benefit is this one's actually got a 3/4 ounce measure on it, so it's kind of handy for that standpoint. So now let's add the 3/4 ounce of Campari. Add our ice. Stir. Now the garnish for this is a lemon twist, and as I always say, make sure you're doing the garnish over top because the lemon actually adds a flavoring component to the drink that otherwise wouldn't be there. There are some drinks that you're going to run across that doing the lemon peel like this overpowers it, so that's all kind of personal preference of how you do it, but always try it first like this, and if you see, gee, that lemon's adding a little bit too much to it, maybe the lemon garnish isn't the right garnish to use anyway. So we're going to add this in that. I think that's delightful. The Campari is adding a sweetness to it. Some people have been making this with sweet vermouth instead of dry. I think that makes it a little bit too sweet. The dry is actually cutting the flavor back, and by having the boost up of the rye whiskey a little bit more than the other 2 ingredients, you're getting kind of that little bit of that heat from the spirit coming through as well. And so there we have the Old Pal cocktail.